Imagine this. A man walks into his own store, wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap, hoping to go unnoticed. He's the CEO, but today, he's just a regular customer. He's hoping to get a feel for the experience his employees offer, to see how things are really running behind the scenes. But when he asks for help, something unexpected happens. The employee looks at him with cold indifference and refuses to assist. Shocked and confused, he wonders how his own team could treat a customer, let alone the CEO, with such disrespect. How did it come to this? What went wrong in the company culture? In this video, we're diving into the moment that turned his world upside down, and we'll explore the hidden truths behind this unsettling encounter. Stay tuned to see how this CEO deals with the unexpected twist of fate. To understand the shock he felt, you need to know a bit more about the CEO. His company had always prided itself on a strong customer-first philosophy, a culture built on respect, trust, and teamwork. He'd worked hard to create a positive environment for both his employees and customers, and he was often seen as a hands-on leader. But this was a wake-up call. He couldn't believe the level of disregard shown by one of his team members. Was it an isolated incident, or was there a deeper issue at play? Had his efforts to build a great workplace really been successful, or was he out of touch with what was happening in the day-to-day? As he stood there, watching the employee turn away, questions flooded his mind. What had gone wrong? And how would he handle the fallout from this unsettling encounter? As the CEO stood frozen, a sense of disbelief washed over him. He had expected the employee to offer the usual polite response, maybe even a little enthusiasm. But instead, he'd been met with cold resistance. The store's atmosphere suddenly felt thick, tense. He glanced around, noticing other employees milling about, seemingly unaware of the uncomfortable interaction. Was this a reflection of their attitudes too, or was this just one rogue staff member? Back in his office, things weren't much better. He'd received complaints about low morale and disengagement from the team in recent weeks, but he brushed them off as minor issues. Now they seemed like red flags he'd ignored. His trusted managers hadn't picked up on this either. Had they become complacent? Was the disconnect between the upper echelons of leadership and the ground-level staff wider than he'd ever realized? He started to wonder if the company's success had caused a shift in culture. Had they become so focused on expansion and profits that they lost sight of the core values they once championed? The more he thought about it, the more questions surfaced, and each one made him more uneasy. This incident wasn't just a personal affront. It could signal something much deeper about the company's future. Could the once strong foundation be cracking under the pressure? The CEO knew one thing for sure. He had to get to the bottom of this, but how? The CEO couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface of his company. The incident at the store gnawed at him, but it wasn't just that one employee. There was something about the overall vibe in the workplace that felt off. Late nights spent crunching numbers and managing expansion had kept him distant from his employees. But now he was starting to wonder if that had caused a deeper rift than he ever imagined. The next day, he decided to visit another one of his stores, hoping for a different experience. But when he entered, the atmosphere was no different. Employees barely acknowledged him. No smiles, no warmth, just routine transactions. A sense of indifference lingered in the air, as if they were just going through the motions. Was this what his company had become? A well-oiled machine where human connection had been replaced by cold professionalism? The CEO felt his frustration grow. This wasn't just about bad customer service. It was about the soul of his company. Had it become a place where people were just numbers, where leadership's values were now hollow words on a wall? As he stood there, feeling the weight of the moment, a thought hit him like a punch in the gut. What if he wasn't the leader he thought he was? What if, in his drive for success, he had unintentionally fostered an environment where employees didn't feel valued? His phone buzzed, snapping him back to reality. It was a message from his top manager. "Can we talk? I think we need to address some issues before they escalate." That was it, the breaking point. He could feel the tension rising, the storm finally about to break. What were they hiding? What had been building behind his back? The answers, he realized, might be far more unsettling than he was prepared for. The CEO stared at his phone, heart pounding. The message from his manager felt like a red flag waving in front of him. He quickly dialed the number, his mind racing. "What's going on? What do we need to address?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The response on the other end was short, clipped, almost as if his manager was trying to avoid saying too much. "Let's meet. It's better we talk face to face," was all the manager said before hanging up abruptly. A knot twisted in the CEO's stomach. What had he missed? What was so urgent that it couldn't be said over the phone? His mind raced, and for the first time, doubt crept in. He'd always prided himself on being close to his team, on being in the trenches with them. But now it felt like the walls were closing in, like his grip on the company was slipping. When he arrived at the meeting, his manager was waiting, eyes darting nervously. The moment he sat down, the manager blurted out, "We've been dealing with some serious issues, and it's bigger than we thought." The CEO leaned in, bracing himself. "What are you talking about?" "It's the leadership team," his manager said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure you're going to like this, but we've uncovered some things. Things you might not want to hear." Before he could respond, the manager hesitated, looking around as if to make sure no one was listening. "One of our top executives might be involved in sabotaging the company's culture. We've been getting anonymous complaints about unethical practices, poor treatment of employees, even misconduct. And some of these complaints are directly tied to your leadership team." The CEO felt a chill run down his spine. Sabotage? How could that be possible? This was his company, the one he'd worked his entire life to build. Could someone inside his own team be undermining everything he stood for? The manager continued, "I don't have all the details yet, but I think you need to take a deeper look. If this gets out, it could ruin everything. The company, your reputation, all of it." The CEO's thoughts raced. Was this what had been festering behind the scenes all along? The tension, the coldness in the stores, the feeling of being out of touch. It wasn't just poor morale. It was something more insidious, something far more dangerous. As he left the meeting, a sinking feeling settled in his chest. He had no idea who he could trust anymore. The truth was out there, and it was darker than he ever expected. But who was pulling the strings? Who could be behind this betrayal? He needed answers, and fast. The stakes had never been higher. The CEO couldn't shake the urgency gnawing at him as he rushed to his office, replaying the conversation in his mind. He needed to act fast. But as soon as he sat down at his desk, something unexpected happened. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from someone he never thought he'd hear from at a moment like this, his most trusted advisor, Alex. "I've been meaning to tell you something," Alex said, sounding almost apologetic. "It's about the company. You need to be prepared for what's coming." "What do you mean? What's going on?" the CEO asked, trying to keep his composure, but his heart was racing again. Alex hesitated. "You won't like this, but I've been holding back. The situation's worse than I thought. I've seen the numbers, and I've been doing some digging. The complaints, they're not just from employees. They're coming from our clients too. And guess who's been behind most of the damage? It's your own leadership team, but not just the executives. It's also someone even closer to you. Someone you trust completely." The CEO's blood ran cold. Could this betrayal go that deep? Who was Alex talking about? "Don't keep me in suspense." "Who?" the CEO asked, voice trembling. Alex paused before saying, "It's you. You've been too hands-off." The culture, the disconnect, it all started when you began to prioritize expansion over your people. You allowed this to fester without realizing it. Your own decisions, your vision, they've been feeding the problem. The words hit him like a slap to the face. The CEO had always thought he was doing the right thing, pushing for growth, innovating, expanding the business. But now he understood. The culture had been shifting, subtly eroding under the weight of his own ambition. It wasn't sabotage from the inside. It was the result of his own leadership style, of losing touch with the very foundation he built. Before he could respond, Alex dropped one final bombshell. And one more thing. I didn't just uncover this. I've been gathering intel for months. I'm the one who tipped off your manager about everything. But now, I'm sorry to say, I've made my choice. I can't be part of this anymore. The CEO was speechless. The truth had been there all along, wrapped up in his own blind spots. The betrayal, the tension, the icy attitude of the employees, it was all his doing. And now, even Alex, the one person he trusted to help guide him, was walking away. A cold realization settled over him. The journey he thought he was on, the success he thought he had built, it had all come at a cost. His company, his vision, was crumbling from the inside out. But then, just as the weight of it all threatened to overwhelm him, the phone buzzed one last time. A message from the store manager he met earlier. We found something. It's not just about the leadership team. There's one more thing, a real culprit. The final twist hung in the air like a noose. The CEO stared at the screen. Was there still more to uncover? Or had everything he believed in already unraveled beyond repair? The answer was just out of reach, but he knew one thing for sure. The story was far from over. The CEO's hands shook as he read the final message. He rushed to meet the manager, his heart racing with anticipation. When they sat down to talk, the manager revealed the last piece of the puzzle. It wasn't one person sabotaging the company. It was a series of small, unnoticed decisions over time, a culture of neglect and indifference that had spread like a virus. The truth hit him hard. It wasn't just about bad management or employees' grievances. It was about leadership failing to adapt, to stay connected with the very people who made the business work. The CEO had learned a painful lesson. Success shouldn't come at the cost of people, trust, and genuine care. In the end, the CEO made a bold decision. He would rebuild, starting with listening to his employees, reconnecting with his values, and fostering a new culture based on respect and collaboration. It was the only way forward, and this time, he wouldn't lose sight of what truly mattered.